The race director and the steward are the two most influential people at the racetrack. Often, they're the same person. So they have to have a lot of training, right? Right? Let's get into it. Hey everyone, and welcome to another one. Today we're talking about race directors and stewards and the kind of training they get, if any. Motorsports by far is the most complicated form of sport in the world. And go-kart racing, you may say, is one of the lower levels, but it is incredibly complicated. Now, you would probably think, given the amount of responsibility that they have, that they would get at least some form of training before they get involved. But the truth is that becoming a race director or a steward or a starter or marshal or really anything like that comes with no training at all. Nothing. There's no classes, there's no courses, there's no online training. The way that most officials become an official is they literally go up to a series director, owner, promoter, and say that they want to be an official. And the series, for whatever reason, said yes. For club level officials, usually you are just asking to take the job. In a lot of cases, it's just a voluntary position. You're not even getting paid for it. In regional and national level, usually you're just expected to have had some club level experience. Really, the only expectation that series have when bringing officials on board that they really find valuable is if you were a former driver. Relying on experience as a driver is not the best way to bring in a race official. I mean, yes, they have the on-track experience, but it doesn't mean that they understand how rules and procedures work. It doesn't mean that they're going to take the time to learn and understand it. Often, they just put what their idea of racing is supposed to be and implement that as their rules in their own head and completely ignore the rulebook, which means anybody who's trying to understand the rulebook or come into the series is going to be completely lost. And that just hurts the racing, that hurts the series. Now, I've said in other videos that it's really not that complicated to understand how rule books work, how rules themselves are structured, or at least how they should be structured, how you're supposed to read them and interpret them and then enforce them. But because there is no actual program in place to train any sort of officials get sent out there with the expectation that they know what they're doing, and then essentially we see how it goes. I think part of the issue is that series owners, series promoters, half the time they don't even understand the rules themselves. I am long past the days of being shocked when I speak to a promoter or a series owner or somebody who's high up in a series that has no idea how any of the rules work and has no desire to learn them. What they expect is that the official is going to know the rules. They're going to take the time to learn and understand them. And really, it's trial by fire. And of course, this all relies on the idea that the rulebook itself is legible and complete. Now, we don't have a proper national sanctioning body in Canada anymore. And the one that we had was flawed. Having one national series sanctioning body rulebook that everybody can base their rules off of is a great idea, but only as long as that rulebook has, as a foundational concept, is complete. It has to make sense. It can't have contradictions and holes in it. And when inevitably there are problems, it needs to be able to be adjusted quickly. Waiting to the end of the season to have meetings about a rule that is a problem right now is not the way to do things. And unfortunately, it's the way it's been done traditionally. One of the most eye-opening experiences I had many years ago, I was brought in to take over a series for another race director. It was this race director's first time working at club, and people were freaking out like this guy was tearing the series down. Like he was making these really awful calls and stuff like that. So you can imagine my surprise when I got there, and instead of finding some guy who had never read the book and was just making it up as he went along, I found a very passionate, very dedicated person who had read the rulebook carefully and was trying his best to enforce it to the letter. And that was the problem. The rulebook that this guy was trying to work had a bunch of contradictions. It had some holes. And because he didn't have the experience to try and plug those holes as best he can, it was creating problems in the series. And when you understand that a national race official might work 5 races a year, a club series might do 15 races a year, and there's no training program, it's not like officials have a lot of time to develop themselves Over the last decade, more than a decade, I've been averaging something like 20 races a year, working 3 or 4 different series. In one year I think it was like 36 races. I think actually it might have been more, which is an incredible amount of experience that most people don't get the opportunity to have. Because I can't imagine how many race officials out there try to read these rule books that are full of holes and problems, who just give up and just try to feel it out as they go. Or, worse, they just stop making calls altogether. And that's not even counting if the series is supporting you or not. Now, some series support their officials and some don't. Some will take the side of a very whiny driver over their own rulebook and basically undermine their officials. At that point, why would an official make hard calls to begin with when they know the series isn't going to support them? The truth is, most frustrated officials just stop trying. Now, don't get me wrong, there are going to be bad officials out there, but taking the effort to learn and understand the rulebook is something that is just left up to the official. Motorsports by far is the most complicated form of sport in the world. And go-kart racing, you may say, is one of the lower levels, but it is incredibly complicated. Expecting experience as a driver to be the only prerequisite that somebody requires to become an official is going to always have its problem. But there needs to be something out there, some kind of program that people can take, probably online, where they can learn the ins and outs of how to do things as a race director, as a steward, tech director, even marshals. I mean, I've written marshal handbooks to try to help series deal with getting people up to speed, because as a race director, I can't rely on the local marshals who don't understand the rules. And maybe if we can get some form of formalized education for officials, we can have better officiating at the track, which is going to lead to better racing, which is going to just make the sport grow. So what do you guys think? Should we have some kind of training program, some kind of national thing? Is it fine that driving experience is enough? Should we have some kind of graduation system where an official needs a certain amount of time in club before they can move to regional and national racing? I don't know. Let me know what you think. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Make any comments. Let me know what you think. Is there something you want me to talk about in another video? And as always, I will see you at the race.